This is the Woodbridge Conservation Commission special meeting, January 21st, 2021, our first meeting of the new year. And Happy New Year, everybody. We will start with our public comments on the agenda. And I have not received any public comments via email, and we do not have any members of the public present to speak either. So we can move on past that one. The next agenda item is to review and approve the minutes of our December 17th, 2020 meeting. And I will make a motion to approve those minutes. Is there a second?
I will second it.
All right. Is there any discussion about the December minutes? All right. If there is no discussion, then I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions. All right. So that is approved. And for continuity of the meeting, you see I kind of split things up. So we're going to approve other minutes in just a few minutes. But at our December meeting, we did talk about, in the chairman's report at the end, the woodbridgetrails.org website and the Trails Challenge. And the consensus around the group was that sounds like a great idea. Let's see what we can put together. And Kate really took it and ran with it. And I am super happy about that. She did a great job. And I had sent around a link to the website that she put together, woodbridgetrails.org. That is now registered and good to go. And Kate and I have had some back and forth discussions. I think it's shaping up to be a really good website. It's very simple, clean. It's got the information that we need. And she did a great job sort of leveraging other cloud services, like linking over to Google Docs to provide forms for people to fill out. So what is the feeling from everybody else? Did you get a chance to look at it? Oh, Sharon, we can't hear you. No, I think your microphone got altered.
So I know what would be helpful, and where I've kind of hit a wall is around for the challenge part of it, if we're thinking about how points should be allocated beyond someone just hiking all 35 miles.
Yeah.
And then after having been at the special meeting on Saturday morning, and hearing from representatives from the Park Association, Tim, and then more importantly, the Land Trust, I want to make sure that whatever we do is honors kind of where they're at and doesn't create any kind of, I'd like it to be a more umbrella versus trying to take things from anybody. It sounds like the Land Trust is very proud of their history of trail cleaning. So
this is true. Looks like Chris is helping out Sharon down there.
Yeah. To go back to your question, Jason, yes, I did have a chance to look at the site, and as you said, it is nice and clean. I may need just a refresh. So the site is not just about the challenge, which I remember more in detail us talking about, but about Woodbridge Trails. There's a bigger scope there than just the challenge.
Yep. And why don't I go ahead and do a quick share of the site here?
Yeah.
Just so we're all looking at the same thing, and in case someone's watching this in the future, you all know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So this was the site that Kate had put together. And you're right, there is this page dedicated to Woodbridge Trails, and it lists all of them. We'll come to the Trail Challenge in just a second. The About section was nice that it actually covers the 3 entities that manage the trails or own trails in town.
Mm-hmm.
So it was great to be able to have that, and clicking on the name or the learn more drives you over to that particular organization's info. And Jim, I know you're involved in the Parks Association, so.
Yeah, that's the only one I clicked, Jason. So if you want to give an example, one of the other ones would be more educational for me.
Well, I'll leave it up to you to go and explore.
Yeah.
Let me come back.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you now, Sharon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And
So,
Sharon,
Jason,
you
to
had-
clarify my comment. I mean, I remember that we talked about we wanted to promote the trails in Woodbridge, and the Trail Challenge was a way to do that. But seems like it's going to be an ongoing site just about the trails, supplemental to the town's website, perhaps linked from there.
Yep. Yeah, it does have a repeat of that information. For example, the trail maps. Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't so much concerned about that, but it'll be a place, and so may develop over time. I'm just trying to refresh myself as to the complete scope of this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's also much easier if someone wants to know about the trails in Woodbridge to go to woodbridgetrails.org instead of go to the town website and click on this link to find this link. To
very direct, yes. Much more direct.
Part of my thinking about it too, Tim, was that I'm a very visual person, and so when I go to the town's website, especially when we first moved to town, you would have to click into each map and be like, "Where is this?" And then trailhead information.
Yeah,
I just feel like these are the things I would have been looking for.
Yeah, no, it's very visual and very easy to navigate and understand. So,
and then I know that there's like some trails are managed by Park Association, some are managed by the Land Trust. And so if you click on any of the maps, it takes you to the full narrative of that trail, which then delineates who it falls under.
Yeah. Which the residents aren't so much concerned about. Shouldn't, truthfully. I mean, they just want a nice place to walk.
All right. So, Sharon, you were starting to have a thought before we've discovered you were muted. Do you remember what that was?
That's all right. It wasn't that important, but.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Sharon, your volume started and just slowly drifted down.
Oh, no.
Oh, there it is. No, you're back, sort of.
I have a brand new computer that I don't really know how to work so well. So I will be a visual member, and let me know if you can. All right.
Okay. So, Kate, I'm going to go into the Trail Challenge section. And so this is where you sort of have leveraged Google Docs and some other cloud items. And you were talking about, let's see, was it under the FAQ where you had the points, or was it under the forms? Oh.
I have to fix that. It was under the forms where you could track your points, but I hadn't put in that's the
that's the registration, the log sheet.
Yep.
Okay.
And I guess I just want it to be something that is equitable and fair, but I also, someone's ability to hike 35 miles shouldn't be the only reason. It's like good trail stewardship, I think, should be really important, and you should be able to get points to earn the badge by the end of the year by participating in trail activities or educational activities. I think what I was struggling with was trying to figure out a fair point value for those things. And how much that, would be an expected amount of accumulation.
Is there a list of those?
No, let's see. Do you have the Google Drive folder, Jason?
Maybe somewhere.
Or you know what? I can screen share, right?
Yeah, let me stop share.
Okay. Obviously, the website, it's still tweaking. I did a really big sprint on it right before the holidays. And then, as you know,
You were motivated.
I was and I remain motivated. I just haven't been able to get back to it as quickly. All right. So I'm gonna pull this up and hit share. All right. So can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right. So these were some of the things that I was thinking of. So I mean, I think if would we want hiking all 11 trails? Like, we want people to do more than just get out of their car and walk 20 feet and then get back in their car and then think that counts. So
it is definitely going to be on the honor system, and there's no monetary incentive. So I think the people that would participate would be sort of upfront about their endeavors. So I wouldn't worry about people abusing it by saying, I hiked all 11 trails, even though they just got out of their car, looked around, and got back in.
Reminds me of whose line is it?
Oh, Sharon, your microphone starts out, and then as you talk, it brings it. It's like adapting somehow.
All right.
It's weird.
Work on it.
Sharon, do you want to, I don't know if you want to type in the chat box if that's easier. I would love to kind of leave this evening with actionable feedback. So I don't want you to, or you can even, I guess, I don't know, what are the rules? I don't want to break any FOIA rules about encouraging people to email me after.
Chat is definitely preferred because that can be captured.
Okay.
So Kate, is there a overall number? So hiking all 11 trails means automatic achievement. And there's others here that have point totals. Had you thought about, is there a point total that equals hiking all 11 trails? Or was that not really?
No, I was thinking about it. I think it would either be like somewhere in the 100 to 200 point range.
Okay. I like the trail cleanup there.
I guess it would be helpful to know too if any of our other trail organizations were planning on doing educational things in this next year, because that could be added as it's it's attend programming sponsored by.
Yeah, Kate, to that point, we had a couple years ago done it was an owl event, we called it. Somebody came in with some owls and it was an educational event. We planned to we had to cancel this past year and we plan to take that up again in the summer if we can of this year. I don't know if that's the type of event you want to include.
Yeah.
We also do a trail run, which again we had to cancel this past summer. That we sponsor within the Alice Newton Street Park. So I mean that could fall all under that middle item: attending or programming sponsored by WCC or Trailmaster, or you can add Land Trust and Park Association. I mean, I think that's probably within the spirit of what you wanted to address there.
I mean, I think we should encourage and reward people being active participants.
Yeah.
On the town's outdoor resources.
Just I would think this question would come up on your first one: hiking all 11 of the trails. And I think you were addressing the amount of hiking you did, but you're really talking about doing a substantial hike within one of the trail locations. For example, if you go to Elderly, you can take quite a good hike without hiking all of it. Right?
Okay. That's good.
And if you meant all of it, it would be the same as the second item, I would think. So you mean, hiking, doing the main trails, I guess, or some such description. Alice Newton has a lot of little side trails, connector trails that, are there and people walk on, but most people don't go to them.
That's very helpful, Tim. Thank you. You're right. Going to stop screen sharing so I can mute.
Another thought that I had, and it's sort of at the risk of committing to more meetings, but presenting this to the Parks Association or Land Trust individually, or we could try to invite them to one of our meetings. Although I've found that generally they would prefer one of us to go to them than have them to come to us. That's been my experience in the past. So
then let me polish it up a bit, and then I can run it past the group again. And then once we feel like it's kind of in a tip-top shape, then we can reach out to those two other organizations formally, not just Tim here. And everyone's.
Sorry, Sharon. What's that?
I'm wondering if we should contact Massaro Farm about it too.
Yeah, I can reach out to Massaro.
I think that's an excellent idea, because they do a lot of educational programming, Sharon, and I think they would love to maybe have another avenue to advertise what they do.
Yeah.
All right. Other thoughts about the website at this point? Think we're good?
Yeah, Jason, no, I had a couple of items actually. To your point of going to Park Association or Land Trust, we have a Park Association board meeting coming up, I believe, on the 10th.
Okay.
Although I'm not seeing it on my calendar, I think it's in that neighborhood. And then my question is this a site then that the Conservation Commission is going to be maintaining on an ongoing basis?
Well, right now it's Kate's project.
Yeah.
She's definitely taken the lead on it. And ultimately, I mean, I would love to see it being able to be passed along for somebody else to tend to in the future. So I think it might be the genesis is coming from conservation, but in the long run, I don't know. I don't have a clear vision personally of who would take ownership. I would love to see it be a collaborative ownership. So it's not just the town, that there could be potential for administration by multiple groups as long as there was clear coordination happening.
Kate, what's the platform?
Right now it's hosted it was a website builder called Wix, and then I kept a lot of the back end data on Google Drive. I shared everything with Jason in case I get hit by a car riding my bike. So in the short term, someone else would be able to take over. And I agree with Jason's assessment. I think that it would be wonderful to have kind of one collaborative clearinghouse that honors all the work that, all three organizations do. Your website's, the Park Association website's very nice, by the way.
Well, thank you. I'm about to do some work to clean it up, hopefully in the next week or two. Okay.
All right. So I guess the next step also is, Kate, so long as you're feeling like it's in a good spot to show to these other organizations, if you'd like to go ahead and work with Tim to coordinate with the parks, I'll talk to Massaro, and can also, I think all of us have got contacts or have had a contact at the Land Trust to kind of kick off that discussion.
Yeah, give me a couple days to kind of run at it again, and then absolutely.
All right. Sharon, is Chris still on the Land Trust? He is. Okay.
I'll pass it by him. I'll have.
And our board meeting is on the 17th of February, just as a clarification on that. I think our agenda planning is next Wednesday.
Land trust is every.
Okay. So I'm going to move us along on our agenda. The next is to review and approve the minutes from the January special meeting, the January 17th special meeting. And I'll make a motion to approve those minutes. Is there a second? Anybody?
I'll second them.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, there not being any discussion.
Yes, Jason, I did have a question.
Yeah.
Just as a clarification, am I correct that in order to connect back one of the trails, the Blue Trail, I guess, that we would have to either obtain land or get an easement across a piece of land?
For the Blue Trail, no.
Okay.
But to connect the Blue Trail to the White Trail, yes.
Yeah, that's okay. I
Yeah.
wasn't exactly sure the colors. Is that worth noting in the minutes or not relevant? It wasn't clear.
All right, let me try to bring up the minutes on my computer real quick here. Was that in item 2, the realignment of the Blue Trail?
Well, I was over just starting to parse through it myself, and
Okay.
yeah, we talked about it's item number 3.
Okay. To reconnect the Blue Trail to the White Trail.
Yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't say it explicitly.
Yeah, and I think it's also because we're in that vague period, because we technically have no right to use that property. It's contingent upon the owner allowing us through. So yeah. I had included those follow-up action steps.
Right.
To have a future walk and propose realigning the fence and pedestrian easement or donation of the portion of the property where we could go around the solar farm.
Yeah, it was one of the purposes of our visit there, though, right?
Yep. So
to assess whether it could be done and what would need to be done.
So if I add a sentence in there that makes it clear that we did feel it was possible.
Yeah.
Make that a little more strong statement. Okay. All right. With that addition, is there any other discussion of the minutes? All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Minutes approved. The next item on the agenda was to sort of update the commission on what we found on that walk, because it was actually the 4 of us were on that walk. I was hoping the other 3 members would be here so we could kind of fill them in on what we found. But this is also an opportunity. I know, Sharon, you had left a little early. Is there anything that we would like as a group right now to follow up on from that meeting? Or is everyone fairly clear that it was a good walk? Trails can be reestablished. The Blue Trail anyway, and on the town-owned property, we kind of walk around a rocky outcropping, and that the White Trail connection is going to be the tricky one. and it'll involve talking with the owner / developer to see where it goes. I did talk with Betsy at Town Hall today and kind of gave her the overview of it and said that Andy was going to be the person to take the lead on the follow-up. She said that she had not heard from him yet, but she was going to give him a call right after she got off the phone with me today. And I know there's been a couple other emails that I've been on from the land trust, and I just want to make sure that moving forward, it's not the land trust and some town representative talking to the same person. We want to have a concerted effort together, not separately. And I don't know where that's going right now. I don't have a firm understanding of who's going to make that contact, but Betsy and Andy were going to follow up with the land trust and make that effort. No, sorry, Sharon.
Right.
It's almost as if you talk very loudly for 5 words and then pause and then talk loudly again. I'm sorry. That's going to make the next part of the agenda a little more challenging. Because the next item.
Is there a phone number where Sharon could call in?
Actually, yeah,
Also
Sharon.
Okay, can I do that?
Yeah.
Or, you know, maybe I should
Yep.
put it on my cell phone. Hold on, I'll just try to do this off here and I'll
Oh, and I just received a message from Tracy that she was having computer problems and she's restarting her computer right now, so she's hoping to get on in just a moment. So while Sharon is trying to reconnect by phone, I guess we'll have a little pause here. All right, this might be Sharon. Oh, we got 2 Sharons now. We'll wait for your iPhone audio to connect.
okay, I think it's connected.
Yep, so I'm going to ask you to disconnect from the computer. Ooh, there we go. Okay.
Okay. I didn't want to disconnect before I had connection. Okay.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay. So all right.
So while we're waiting for Tracy to join us to move on, Sharon, did you want to have any comment about the trail walk?
Yeah, I mean, since what I was on was inland wetlands, which had different issues in Conservation Commission, I just don't know if there's any role for us to think about asking them to put grass cover or what to plant there when they're putting the solar panels on, or if we have any role to help that land rehabilitate at all. And
yeah, definitely our role is limited. We're mostly an advisory body unless we are given the authority by the town to actually take actions. The site work or the site plan that was presented to Inland Wetland last summer did include on their drawings what they were going to plant and where they were going to plant it around the solar panels.
Yeah, good. I was just thinking that there could be a lot of drainage that wouldn't be good in that area if there wasn't grass or planting. So I'm glad that that's being thought of. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, that was my main thought.
And Brian Pines from the Land Trusts, he had concerns about the sort of the runoff collection area that is there.
Yeah. I would be a little concerned about that too, just seeing how much slope there was. So, okay, that's helpful to know that someone's thinking about that. And that it isn't really our role to think about that.
So Tracy, you just joined. We had just finished our review of the minutes from the meeting last weekend. And do you have any, I know you weren't there, but do you have any questions?
don't think so. I looked at them. There was one, but I don't remember what it was at the moment.
Okay. Are there any visuals that I could bring up that would help you? Or you think you're good?
I think I'm good. I know where the property is. And, you're going to make some recommendations for placement of windmill, right?
Windmills.
Windmills or whatever. I knew it as soon as I said it. Oh, please, I hope this goes. Oh my gosh, I was thinking like wind turbines. Oh my gosh. All right, get in the game here. I don't think I have any pressing questions.
Okay. So I think where it stands right now is that Andy is going to talk with the town, and maybe he will be appointed to follow up, or Betsy or somebody else, a town employee, will follow up. And then my thought is that it'll be up to Andy to sort of organize a trail crew to come in and blaze the trees and cut up any logs that need to get cut up so that we have that blue trail realigned along the path that we had walked. So I'm sure that'll be happening sometime in the next weeks or months, all weather dependent. And then, of course, after that, we'll have to get the maps updated as well. All right, I am going to move us along on the agenda. So the last item before the chairman's report is to discuss and plan the objectives for 2021 based on
didn't our meeting start at 7:30?
7.
Oh. I'm so sorry.
So, and I'm actually going to talk to that in the chairman's report.
Didn't I just read that we planned all the meetings for 2021 at 7:30 in the town hall, but we're going to do Zoom, and wasn't that in something you sent?
Hold that thought.
Okay.
We'll get to that afterwards.
I'm sorry. I feel terrible. Okay.
Well, you came in at the right time. I mean, we had a quorum, so we voted for stuff, and now you're here for the discussion about what are we going to do in 2021.
Okay.
For those of us that were here at the beginning of 2020, we had gone through this exercise and had every intention of getting stuff done, and COVID. So let's hope 2021 doesn't turn out this way. You got the new strains of the virus coming around, but hopefully they're not that crazy that really locks things down again. With that in mind, I am going to, I'd shared the document for objectives for 2021, and it is really lifted right out of the open space plan. And see if I can bring it up here. I'm just going to throw it up on the screen so we all at least have some visual. If you're looking at it separately on your computer, that is totally fine as well. And I will fully admit that this document, the only thing that I changed on it for this meeting is the date. Everything else is exactly as it was when we looked at this just about a year ago. So at this point, we can go through these item by item if we would like. If there was anything that stood out to you right off the bat, feel free to speak up.
Do any of these items spark joy for any of the other members in particular? Because my concern is that these are all great and noble goals, but as Jason said in the past, you kind of need things to have a champion. It did come up in our special meeting over the weekend about the point system and where that was at. I think it was a land trust member who asked about it. So I don't know if that signals that maybe this could also be another collaborative effort with them in terms of, like, I don't know how much has to be sanctioned off from groups.
I mean, I'm still fine being the champion for this particular item. I've been deep into it for years, so I'm glad to continue that discussion. Tim has proposed that perhaps we simplify it a bit, which I can get behind, and it could be the focus of one of our subsequent meetings. I feel like there was the development of this really detailed, comprehensive rating system, and perhaps it's too much, and we need to bring it back a little bit. And I think my engineering brain can really run away with things and get into the weeds pretty quickly. So that might have been where it went off the rails. But I'm perfectly happy to continue being the point for this particular objective, if nobody else wants to take it.
I'm happy to talk with you, Jason, about possibly whittling it down if you want help trying to, work on those.
Yeah. Jason, this is Tim. I don't understand the comment about somebody taking it. Aren't these items that are 2021 objectives for the whole commission?
They are.
That we will figure out a way to get them done as a group and split up the work appropriately, or
yep,
maybe someone can do one up by themselves, but in the most part that we need to figure out how to put our hands around it and split up the work.
Yeah, the intention of sort of giving an objective a champion is that's the person that is sort of organizing and collecting all the parts to achieve that objective. Sort of, let's call it the project manager for that objective.
Okay, so then maybe I almost want to go back up a level in the discussion, but then should we have a piece of this that says owner or sponsor or whatever you want to call it that you write down?
Yep.
So, yeah. So let me, now that I'm talking, let me go back up a level almost. I'll let you note that down.
Okay.
But yeah, and we may not, assign that until the end, or but so is this document something we're trying to refine and edit and come up with a finalized version, and these are our objectives for 2021? Or is this just something for to make a discussion happen?
It's to make a discussion happen and to try to move some of these forward. Because the open space plan objectives primarily come from the plan of conservation and development, it would be great to see these objectives met by the time the next POCD is being developed, which is in
I guess
3 years.
The plan of conservation and development kind of inspired these, but these, as you said, you pulled them from the open space plan, correct? And
so this is a working document that kind of sprouted from the open space plan.
Yeah, and that's the Conservation Commission's document.
Yep, and the open space plan is sort of a derivative from the plan of conservation and development.
Yeah.
With a bit more focus only on open space.
Right. Yeah. Right. So these I drill in on terminology and try to, in order to enhance understanding of my own and then hopefully others. But so these are these seem to be the initiatives that are outlined in the open space plan.
Yep.
And the measures, what you're calling measures, are really the objectives for this year. Or those, is that what you're trying to accomplish by where you say measures? These are the 2021 objectives?
Well, the idea behind the measures is to sort of work it from the perspective of you have goals, which are a bit more abstract
Yeah.
and guide you. And then you have your objectives, which are definitely achievable and measurable. And then you have the measures that make sure that you are still working towards that objective. So you're kind of breaking it down into pieces. That was the approach that I had when I put this document together.
The measures are things that are actionable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So okay. So the all right. Okay. So these are the 2021 measures, the things we're going to try to take action on in 2021.
Well, potentially.
Yeah. Many times you don't achieve all your objectives.
Exactly.
Or not 100% sometimes not at all. But
yep.
You can still you should be reasonable about what you lay out as your objectives. Things
yes.
that we think as a group we can take on and have some confidence that we can get substantially through them.
Yep.
Except if COVID comes along,
I think it makes sense to whittle this down to 2 or 3 and have small groups.
It's part of where I'm going, Tracy. I mean, I think we have to be cognizant of, what we're trying to document here, and then be reasonable about what we can accomplish.
Yeah.
And I guess we can comment on that as we go through them. I'd like to go through each of them, actually.
Yep. Why don't so?
Because I think the questions that have been raised maybe I misunderstood Kate's comment. Does anybody have passion for some of these? There's some that, or maybe that was, does somebody have ownership for some of them? I think some of them we need to question whether they should even be undertaken this year or at all.
Yep. So, as I said, I definitely have interest in moving this one along. So I'm glad to manage it and collect the documentation and be the handler of all the draft materials and make sure we're moving it along. The use designations of open space. This is another one.
My question on this, one question I have on this is, will this be in the end part of the property classification?
This is, and actually something that's come up is I was given a document from the early 1980s or late 70s. It was a document that the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Properties put together. And it includes all of the town-owned properties at the time, how they were acquired, and the suggested use of them at the time. So this one, at least to me, this particular endeavor is going to be one that's highly collaborative, especially with this organization, the Commission on the Use of Publicly Owned Properties, although that is not their name. But CUPOP is much easier to say than the other acronym, which is a different arrangement of their letters. But I can see where, Tim, your original point of this sort of overlapping with classification.
Well, it completes it. It makes it a fuller, profile of those parcels and those properties.
Yeah.
And I would, will be suggesting that it's incorporated into that. Not that you can't develop it separately and do that collaboration. It wasn't the point to try to merge it. It was just to, get an understanding. I think that's where it needs to go.
And then the review of properties worth acquisition could probably be also put together in that group.
Yep. And let me bring this together. So that was that one down here.
think it's helpful to look at things more holistically together as opposed to in separate categories.
Yeah, and
They
some of
are
these
related.
mesh together really well.
Yeah.
Yep. The open space management plan, this is a big nut to crack for sure. I have a feeling that could be a single focus for an entire year, potentially.
So this is obviously different than the open space plan, correct?
Yep.
And the driver for this, does this come out of the plan of conservation and development?
This is one that's been talked about for quite a while, and in a small way, Tim, you and I have been working on the trail management plan for the town. So you could think of it in that respect, but this is on a much bigger scale. And in terms of how do you overall manage all the open space that's in town? Is there an opportunity to apply forestry practices to some of them to help rejuvenate the forests? Are some that have been left fallow? Should these be cleared and farmed? These are just examples off the top of my head of.
Well, why wouldn't those two specifically be part of not be part of the open space plan? Or yeah, the open space plan, I guess.
They could.
And eventually the plan of conservation and development. Aren't those the plans of what you're gonna sort of do with the properties, or what the recommendations are, or the vision for those things?
Yeah, I could certainly see some of that. But the idea was to create originally sort of an overall management plan for all town-owned properties, and then focus in specifically. So I gave some very specific examples of targeted parcels.
So it's out of somewhere there. Somebody identified a need to say, how are we going to manage all the town's open space? In terms of physically manage, is that what the management means?
Yeah.
It's not talking about use, and it's not talking about a vision for the property long term. It's talking about physical management. How do you keep it in shape to if it's a trail, how do you keep the trail cleared? If it's a farm, when I'm out of my realm of expertise, but how do you keep it, properly operational? If it's a scenic vista piece of open land, how do you keep it a scenic vista? So it's addressing all those things.
Yeah.
This isn't something that falls into your trail master group.
It definitely does. Although that group is focused on trails, it doesn't have a more broad view of it.
Yeah, it's bigger than trails, is I think I hear you saying, Jason.
Yeah. Yep.
Are any of these items things that can be completed within just this committee, or are they all ones that then touch on other committees?
There's definitely going to be overlap talking about managing town properties, because Coopop definitely is involved on the use of the properties, so they would like to, I would expect, have input into any sort of document that would talk about managing the properties, even though they might be open space. So the use is technically open space, so conservation would oversee it, but there could be trails, there could be athletic fields they fall under the category of open space, but Coopop or rec even is managers of sorts.
Yeah,
I
that's
think-
almost a better example than I was coming up with, that, some of the open space are recreational areas, and it would seem the rec department already has plans for those.
My main concern would be that we start doing this work, and then when we get to one of our partner commissions in town, they have their own plans for 2021 that might not necessarily include what we've worked on. And these are all great and worthy goals. I just think we should really, as Tracy said, kind of hyper focus on ones where that we can be the most impactful in this next year.
Yep. And on the mention of Coupop specifically, they've got a meeting on the 25th, so Monday. And I'm currently the liaison between conservation and Coupop. So
yeah,
what we come out of this meeting with, I'll be relaying to them on Monday.
Yeah, I have a somewhat a tough time with this one in terms of our, what was just said, what's in front of us for this year, even whether this is within our scope of the Conservation Commission. Perhaps it is, but I was going to be suggesting, I'll bring it up now, that we get to the end of the list, Jason, we prioritize these.
Yep.
And as I took my own draft of the priorities, this one fell, down towards the bottom for me, just because of, other things on the list. But we'll let others, everybody do their own ranking here.
Well, Jason, can I back us up a little bit? Because I'm thinking, I might not be following what you guys are saying, but I am also seeing that there's lots of interconnected objectives. I think as a Conservation Commission, one of the things that we bring uniquely to offer is protecting the land and choosing what lands to protect in the future. And I know this is maybe backing it up, but I'm not sure of the, are we in agreement that that's a key part of what our agenda is as a group?
Agreed.
Yes.
So I think the thing that I would always love is if we found land that we could then conserve. And I know we've talked about that in the past, and I know that we're creating a ranking system. But what I have no idea of is if we find a piece of land that's up for sale, I think we should have a plan of, who we go to and what we do to try to be effective to get it purchased within a time frame that it's available, because I think we have no sense of that. And that seems like it's one thing to make the classifications, but different pieces of property, like the Sorensen, right, property is coming up. Like, how do we even approach the town committees that would be needed and create the influence that we want so that we could get that land conserved with some of the funds that supposedly we have allotted to us? So to me, that would be something that I'd like a meeting about, just to learn about how we think we go about that, so we have an idea if we do find land that we could get. And the other thing is, I think in the realm of conserving property, are there pieces of town-owned land like Fitzgerald's or something that we see there's a deficiency and we want to have an effect to protect that land in the spirit of conservation? So those are two things that, aside from the more lofty goals of creating a whole format for how those are done, like what properties classified onto what ranking system, I kind of would like to know what are at risk and where we should put our energy that way. And if we were to find a property that was a possibility, how would we ever go about influencing the town to do that? Do we have a strategy? Does that resonate with anyone, or does that kind of just not make any sense?
I think it makes a lot of sense, and we've talked about this, and we always go back to, we have to apply for a grant, but obviously the timing of these things don't necessarily line up. So that is something that's always struck me, that we think about all these properties we want to conserve, but we don't have any money to buy them, and we don't know how we would if there was a property we wanted to buy.
Well, you know who's really tenacious and has affected a lot is Jim Urbano. So I don't know if we'd ever want to, sort of see what he's done. Not that it's always worked so perfectly, but I think even we should have a separate meeting or one of our meetings devoted to brainstorming how, who would do what to get a property approved. I mean, who would write a grant? How would we find out about how to write a grant? Just so that we have some realm of preparation if there is such a thing as a piece of property that we could buy.
Yep. And I think what would be really helpful for all of us and for those that come after us is to operationalize it in some way in a document so that it's clear to everybody that this has been what's been successful in the past and this is the recommended way to go about it.
Yeah. So Jason, within the open space plan, there is a small section, methods of protection and acquisition.
Yep.
Does it belong there as an expanded part of the open space plan? This is, we have some properties that are worthy of acquisition listed there. And then do we naturally expand that to your point, which I agree with, we should have some sense of what's the process in town that are processes that are available to us. And maybe that's, it's an objective we need to add for this year to consider, which is to, build that out.
I would think people like Tony Genovese and even speaking to Beth and even, interviewing town people who have some say in how it would go might be good to get some information from.
I see that as more important than the item we were talking about, the open space management plan. It's something that we have to be, ready to move quickly when the opportunities come up.
Yep.
And the only other thing that you were talking about what sparks our interest. For me, it's the Fitzgerald property, but I would think that I'd need a lot of understanding of who, that might be a good test case of who do we talk to, how do we get involved, how do we understand the politics, because there are a lot of politics around any of these pieces of land. Maybe brainstorming as a part of a meeting, who would think about talking to the gardeners and who would think about talking to the dog people and who would think about raising enough support, or talk to Beth Heller and figure out she's just against it, so it's ridiculous to even bother, or, sort of suss out what the opportunity is for that as a potential first step in figuring out how to protect other lands from, varieties of uses that might not fit with the conservation vision. But that would just be something and that would be the one that I think I could be most invested in as well, because you're asking about that.
Yep.
The other thing that I noticed popped up a few times is talking to property owners. Maybe it would be a worthwhile exercise having kind of our own nice template letter on behalf of the Conservation Commission. We at least use as our jumping off point for talking to property owners about, the benefits of adding these things through their yards.
Wait, say that again. I didn't quite understand what you meant.
So
who would it be for?
Hold on, I have it open on my screen too. So like for the Greenway Extensions, one of the measures is work with owners to make pedestrian passage possible, contact owners of affected parcels.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That, like having kind of consistent language that we use so that, again, after we're all long gone, someone can pull up kind of how we did that process.
Yeah, that seems very actionable. We can accomplish that.
So do we want to focus on Fitzgerald then? And Jason can continue to work on the part that, the first part.
Yep.
But then maybe as a group, we can all kind of work on that, on the Fitzgerald piece together.
Sure.
Let me just knock off a couple of these others that are in here because they're
I like
here. They're here because they've been here. It's just one of those things. Developing trails through existing golf courses. My personal feeling is that we don't need to focus on this in 2021.
I agree.
And that way we can just move the conversation along.
Yeah, because if people want to walk through a golf course, they can walk through a golf course.
I actually like this other one, Jason, near Rice Pond, but it seems like more something, not necessarily our, it seems like more park rec, like the rec than us. I mean, unless it was a collaborative project. I don't know. You said there's no longer support in it. What would it involve in terms of reconstruction? And are we talking big expense for the town? It may just not make sense at the time.
Yep.
Although I like it.
Yeah, Tracy, I'd written down the same comment on my notes. Just, is this a rec item? But Jason, for now, I put it as future, and then we can see if it should come up in the.
And then looks like we're at the bottom. Greenway Extensions.
Won't this come up as part of the review of the properties of interest and therefore the property classification?
There'll definitely be some overlap. Yeah.
Will it be overlap or will it?
Well, I think it'll be to me there'll be overlap. Of the actual actionable items on the Greenway extension would be to, for example, try to achieve a trail connection from Darling property down through West Rock Materials to Knoll's Pond. That would involve talking to the owners and trying to get easements, and that's the kind of thing that I was thinking would fit into a Greenway extension.
Okay. All right. Well, the measures or the action items say we right now we don't have the Greenway defined. Is that still true?
No, there is a official Greenway through the town.
Okay, so the first item is, should we strike that?
Well, proposed trail would be the extension of that Greenway. So that's.
And also the other one you're thinking of, I remember Chuck Pine, I think, talked about going down back through Wells Fargo. And maybe we could make it a collaborative project with Land Trust to do something like that.
Yeah, I was following up with them on that discussion from this past weekend.
It sounds like they might be willing to take that on and have us just be backup for that too.
Yeah, I need to get a better understanding of what they're trying to achieve. It does land on town property, so it would fall under the town's purview to probably lead the action forward.
Okay. Now, with our rules, can we meet as a group of one or two to do work on this and make some planning, or do we always have to be at a public forum and a special meeting?
So Tim and I actually have been talking about this quite a bit. It does lend itself to adhering to FOI rules, Freedom of Information rules. That's where all of this is driven from. And there's a sense that we could have potentially up to 3 members together, provided that it is a agreed upon purpose from one of these meetings, and it's not to discuss anything beyond what you've been tasked with. Once you hit 4, you hit a quorum, which is we must notice a public meeting for sure. But
Okay.
if you're doing very focused work that we all agreed upon would be done at one of these public meetings, so it's okay to come together in 2, maybe 3 people.
Okay, well, I think that's a tool that we should use, because I think that when we're meeting like this, we're new things are coming up and we don't really get the chance to dig in and create an actionable plan for each of us to do in the intervening time. So maybe we should plan to have a possible meeting for a few of us to talk about Fitzgerald property more specifically.
Yep.
Yeah. Jason, if I can add a comment on or add to what you just said.
Sure.
We just have to be careful as we work as smaller groups that we're not, and this is information I was given by the FOI office, public information officer, I guess it's called. And we've got to make sure it's not a subcommittee. We're not, as long as that's not a subcommittee on the Fitzgerald property, then it's okay. But if it's, if it acts as a subcommittee, then it needs to be noticed.
Okay.
If we're doing legwork to understand, to get information, to better, work and further our overall work, that's different. But if it's acting as a subcommittee to come up with decisions, that's we have to be careful in those situations.
Yeah. And one real world example that I can provide to everybody on this is years ago when we were trying to do a revision of the open space plan, there was work assigned to different people, and in some cases it was multiple people to work on a particular segment of the open space plan. So they exchanged emails and met at the town hall a couple times together. And this was in this case, it was a group of 2 people. But they were gathering information to put into the open space plan, and that was per the direction of a prior meeting. So that
was okay.
And that was okay. That was a very specific purpose of why they were getting together, and it was not making any decisions. It was just to work on something that was directed to be done.
So we could direct somebody to talk with a couple people, could figure out who would be good people to talk to about the Fitzgerald property, and then we could present that back in another meeting. Is that?
Yeah, sounds like legwork.
Yep. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So Jason, if we're ready, can we go back to the Greenway extensions? I just feel unsettled about that one. It sounds like we have a complete Greenway plan, but now this is trying to expand or extend that. I guess I may have misunderstood. So yes. You're trying. All right. Then so this is the first item is to define where those extensions will be and where the trail will go. I mean, to me, that's a good 21 goal. The other items of acting on it, I sort of think maybe those are a little more in the future, but and I guess I would add an item if we're going to identify that where the additional properties are, where the trail is going to go, and if it needs additional properties, they should be added to the open space plan and the properties of interest.
Yep.
So those would be my comments on that, given a better understanding now.
All right. So to sort of summarize our discussion and move us along here, it sounds as though for 2021, we're going to work on the Fitzgerald goal, or the objective for Fitzgerald. And we'll also work on some of these overlapping objectives, starting at the top of the classification and rating, which kind of bleeds into open space and open space designations, which bleeds into reviewing the properties. And
well, Jason, the other piece is us being learning how to be prepared for us and for in the future, if there's a piece of land we do want to conserve, how we would go about the legwork that would require to make that possible.
So this one right here, opening, update, and I just wrote shorthand here, updating the open space plan with that particular detail of how we can go about acquiring and what mechanisms have been successful in the past.
And collaborating maybe with other like land trust that has more resources and different, has more latitude some ways.
Yep. They definitely have more latitude. And then if we get to Greenway Extensions, that sounded like potentially the next one to kind of dip into. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Well, those have you just prioritized or have you just listed?
I've tried to bring it together, and I have purposely left off the rice pond, the golf courses.
Okay, can we add priority numbers
Sure.
and agree on the priorities? Because that'll drive the agendas, right, for the next few meetings.
Let's see. All right.
I think that's smart. Otherwise, we are still too diffuse to get going.
So who wants to start?
I did it before the meeting, so I'll give you my numbers, and then people can change it.
Go
Okay.
for it.
I said 1, develop use designations of open space, and the reason was that I think that's a pretty contained item, if I've understood it. Pretty short. In its initial development, the discussions with the other parts of town will maybe extend, but at least the initial part of it would be short. So that's my number 1. Number 2 is the property classification, rating, and identification.
Yep.
Number 3 is the Greenway extensions, that part of it that has to do with identify those where the trail will go and therefore the properties if needed of acquisition. And then number 4 was the review of the properties worthy of acquisition. Number 5, the Fitzgerald. Number 6, how acquire properties. And number 7, what was a kind of a general one that I added, perhaps, is revising the open space plan. We've said a few times tonight that we were going to revise it. So to revise the open space plan to incorporate the above and other changes that we need to respond to town needs. And then the open space management plan and developing the trails, the golf courses and the recreation just drop down to the future on my take of this.
So will you review those again? The first one is
Sure.
use.
And I'm sorry, I was looking at my piece of paper. I thought Jason was maybe putting a number next to each one to make it easy for everybody.
Let me stop share and reshare.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
So that was my real quick shorthand.
Yep. Thank you, Jason. Try to get a quick hit with the use designations and then get off to the other commissions and work on the property class ratings. And then, the next 2 are to try to make sure we're complete in the properties that we want to consider for the Greenway, and then for the, the properties of interest to make sure that's right. And then Fitzgerald and then how to do the acquisitions once we've identified everything. But that was just, my take when I looked at it earlier today.
So when I first joined, we did about a meeting and a half on the system that Jason had created. Or would number one or be that again?
That would be number 2 on that.
Okay.
The use designations is a sort of a shorter document, and I don't know if I've gotten it out to everybody. I did get a copy over to Tim.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to get it to the point where like we can agree that this is in good shape and that we can consider it checked off the list.
What? Which are you saying, the priorities or the numbers 2?
The property classification and rating is what I think Kate was talking about. That number 2 item there.
So are we thinking that within a meeting or 2 we can do those first 2 things, or is this going to be a long-term project? I guess I don't have much perspective on it.
My gut tells me the use designations could probably, I can circulate it around to everybody, make sure everyone has seen it. But it could take a single meeting to get through. The property classification and rating system, that it's been kicked around for so long. It could be a single meeting, or it might broaden out to up to 3 meetings.
I'm not sure that's, unless we have the ability to acquire anything, being that careful about what we want seems sort of, I don't know. I feel like because last year we did a lot of meetings around this too, didn't we? Or 2 years ago when I first joined.
Yeah.
I just think it's a lot of discussion without much action.
It's sort of one of those things that it's almost a bureaucratic tool in a lot of ways. So it feels like you're not accomplishing anything because you're developing a tool to be used in the future. There's no immediate need for it. So it does have that unsatisfying feeling. I know exactly what you mean.
But I don't think it's that far off from where we would want it. I know that we went a little bit back and forth just on kind of, whether farming should move up 2 spots and being more valuable, or if we were going to add in, multipliers for properties that were at risk of development. But I don't think that maybe I'm wrong, but I think we're close on that one at least.
Yeah.
Why don't we designate one meeting to each of those 2 things and see where we get to for the next 2 months, and see if we need to have people sort of investigate different things further on their own, or as not a subcommittee, but like doing legwork, so that we can move on to more actionable things soon after that. Does that sound reasonable?
I'm okay with that.
How about you, Tim? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, I think that's right, especially if Jason's right. We can do use designations pretty much in one meeting. I do have a question, Jason, to try to help move things along. Can we, and let's use designations as the working case here. As you send that out to everybody, which you mentioned you would, can you solicit feedback and suggestions that can be done between meetings and consolidated into and then presented at the meeting that we're going to dedicate to it, just to not have it be the first time that people hear of the suggestions when they come to the meeting?
I think the proper way to do that is that I'll send it out, and I encourage everybody to contact me individually for feedback.
Yeah.
Okay. My brain immediately went to, this is a great way to use documents in the cloud. But then you get into the multiple people editing a document at the same time turns into an actual meeting.
No, and I knew we want to avoid that. but it was more the email responses, and it doesn't maybe have to always fall on you. I mean, we could, I can take that one and consolidate any email responses and try to,
Well, maybe we should all, Jason, if you send it out, how about, per what you're saying, Tim, is why don't we all take it upon ourselves to read it and make some notes, and at least say we have, send something back to Jason so that we then have something to work with. Or if someone has very few ideas, they can just say, I don't have many ideas about it, but at least we've all given some feedback.
Right. Yeah. And that was just to get it a little further along before the next session.
Okay. I think that's smart.
All right. Sounds good to me. So that'll be the focus of our next 2 meetings. But use designations next, then after that, we'll get over to the classifications.
Yeah.
So thank you, Tim.
Well, I'm trying to make myself not talk here, because you shouldn't start talking after you've made the sale. So, but I didn't expect those to stand as they were outlined by me, but if everybody wants them to stand, that's fine.
I do want to get to some of the ones further down. That's why I think it would be good to get to those and not have them lingering over us.
Right, and it wasn't meant to be a we can't work on more than one thing at once. I think we probably can and should. But
I think it's better to have an imperfect plan than keep floating in the wind. So.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Let's go.
All right.
All right, good. So let's move on to the last item on the agenda, which is the chairman's report. And this chairman doesn't have a whole lot to report on. I covered some of what I've known or learned over the last few days about Park Lane and the solar farm. That there's going to be some subsequent discussion. There is also a property further down Park Lane that is up for sale. It's 11 acres, and the land trust is got some interest in trying to look into, is that something they want to go after? It's surrounded by town and utility property, and it's currently got trails that don't cross it but go around it. So Park Lane's been a hot button topic this past few weeks.
Should we consider that it might be a piece of land that we want, since it has other land that's protected right near it?
It is, and it's not on our list of properties of interest. So,
well, that's what concerns me, is that we may really find lands that are more important and available that we didn't even consider, and so we maybe need the flexibility to think about them.
Yeah. The other point I just want to bring up to everybody is that 57 Park Lane was a property we were that close to submitting a grant to purchase back in 2015. But the consensus turned around to be that it's only possible to develop maybe one building on that lot, if that. And nobody considered a solar farm as a possible development on a property. So we got to be a little more imaginative, I guess, as to what could be done with a property, and not focus exclusively on building a house.
So I think this begs another question. Is our strategy to save up our little pot of money for the one most important thing, or is it like, as things come up, if we figure that it would be useful, should we just try to plug ahead, and even if we use up resources, or should we try to do it as it appears? Because I think if we wait for the perfect piece, we may never acquire anything.
So I want to have us have that discussion at a future meeting, because I think once we get into the properties worthy of acquisition, that's a good point to talk about. How do we want to go about it? Is it priority? Do we hold the money back? Do we not? So I like that thought. I want to have a more in-depth group discussion on that one. Other things, I did not get a chance to follow up with the Audubon, the Mononkatuk Audubon, to talk about the birdhouse relocation ideas. So I will be following up with him in the next few weeks. And the cell tower, no news on cell tower. I know the town is still having discussions about trying to relocate it elsewhere. And for the multifamily housing topic that we previously brought up, also no changes. I did observe the TPZ meeting earlier in January. There's another one coming up at the beginning of February. So if you're interested, I encourage you to go and watch it. I don't know where things are going in town with that right now. So keep your eyes open. And we'll see where TPZ ends up landing with it. And I don't have anything else right now. So with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I move to adjourn.
All right, I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Tim's abstaining. He's muted.
Okay.
All right, folks. There he's back.
I'm just not very quick on the mute button.
All right, everybody.
Well, can we just clarify the meeting's at 7 on
Oh,
February?
right. Thank you for reminding me, because Tracy brought that up. We did file that meetings would be town hall 7:30, third Thursday of every month. The reason that these are special meetings is because we're not meeting at our regular time. And we're not meeting at our regular.
Our third meeting. Isn't this our regular meeting?
It's a regular meeting, but not a regular time.
So it can be a special meeting.
So that's why they're special meetings. It's because they're not the same time. And so the reason that we shifted to 7 was that we could. Prior, when we were all meeting in person, 7:30 was the designated time because that's when the room at town hall was available.
Right.
Once we went virtual, we as a group sort of decided that, hey, we don't have to meet so late. We could meet earlier in the evening. So we shifted it to 7 and started calling them special meetings.
Got it.
We submitted our annual, and this is by FOI rules, we have to submit all meeting dates for the year by January. So we submitted that. And I just kind of stuck with every third Thursday at 7:30. And we could go back to meeting at 7:30 if the group felt
No,
like.
this is fine. I had read that because I read all the materials before the meeting, and so I was thinking 7:30, and it just threw me off. But
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
What is the third Thursday? I don't have my count. What is the third Thursday of
February?
next month? Yeah.
It is the 18th.
Okay.
Do we need to vote again to re-adjourn the meeting?
I think so. I think we started a meeting. Motion to adjourn.
A second.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Sharon.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Now we're officially adjourning at 8:32.